Hello, everyone.
Woo!
Hi! Welcome once again to our West Virginia Shakespeare Festival Winterfest. We had a great workshop on Monday with Dr. Jeffrey Roof, and we were about to have another great workshop here with Leah Turley. A couple quick things before we begin. We want to thank the West Virginia Humanities Council for making all of these things happen for free. We get a grant from them every year. We could not do what we do without them. Thank you to the West Virginia Shakespeare Festival and Alchemy Theater for doing all of these things. Hi, my name is Mike Murdoch. I'm the Artistic Director of Alchemy Theater. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Here's a quick rundown. Leah Turley is an assistant professor at theater performance at Marshall University School of Theater and Dance, creative artistic director for the Appalachian Artists Collective, and artistic director for Marshall University's Theater, etc. Leah returned to West Virginia in 2012 after earning her master's degree from UNC Greensboro in theater performance and joining Actors Equity with the goal of producing, engaging, and imaginative theater that reflects the cultural and historical significance of West Virginia. She has directed several shows here at Alchemy, including Antigone and last season's The Love Song of J. Robert Oppenheimer. The West Virginia Shakespeare Festival and Alchemy Theater are very glad to have her with this workshop called Don't Fear Shakespeare Auditions. Join Professor Leah Turley for a quick and dirty audition tutorial with the Bard. Shakespeare isn't your enemy, especially at an audition. Learn to choose the right material for you, explore a 10-minute script analysis technique for stronger characterization, and present your monologue. For tips and tricks to tackle the Bard, don't fear Shakespeare, make Shakespeare fear you. So, without further ado, the West Virginia Shakespeare Festival and Alchemy Theater are proud to present my longtime friend, Professor Leah Turley.
Thank you, Mike. Hello. So I thought I always like to start this out with what I think should be the demystification of Shakespeare's work. So much to the chagrin of a number of Shakespeare scholars and professors and directors and actors, I treat Shakespeare like any single other play you would ever interact with. So Shakespeare is Sylvia, Shakespeare is A Doll's House, Shakespeare is Charlotte's Web. Shakespeare is no different than any single other play. There are some differences, of course, right? There's a language issue that most people have to get around. So is it iambic, is it prose? There's also an issue, I think what we've done as a community, professionally and educationally, we like the idea that Shakespeare is difficult. It feeds a lot of our elitism and intellectualism because then we would have to admit that what we do is actually not that difficult at all. What I mean by that is, this is pretend. Everything we do is simply pretend. And if you come from that perspective, then we might have to admit that we're just children playing around on a stage and that what we do is super simple. Is it difficult? No. Is it stressful? Sure. Is it anxiety-inducing? Sure. But difficult? I don't think so at all. And so one of the ways that I like to approach it is kind of by, I would like to remind everyone that the people who saw Shakespeare's work the most in Elizabethan England, the great vast majority of people who saw Shakespeare's work had less education than you. The majority of the groundlings couldn't even read. So we're talking about, and they're the entire reason why Shakespeare's work was able to proliferate across time. Because even those at the lowest status rung and at the top, all were able to be a part of Shakespeare's work in the globe, right? So whether you were standing looking up, hoping to glimpse an actor, but mostly listening to Shakespeare's work, or if you were up in the boxes and you were royalty, those people gathered at the same place. And so across time, that work becomes something remarkable for everyone. That's true of all good playwrights. That's true of Ibsen's work. That's true of Chekhov's work. That's true of Euripides and Sophocles. And I always remind my students that the reason this work continues to be relevant is because we as humans have solved exactly nothing. We are the same terrible people we have always been since the dawn of time. Everything in all of Shakespeare's plays right now is relevant today in 2025. And so while getting around iambic or figuring out what some of the references that Shakespeare are making, a number of Greek and Roman references, a number of political references of Elizabethan England, while that stuff that is considered difficult, we have the internet. It's 2025. And so all of this work, right? Work smarter, not harder. So everything, every single question you could ever have about Shakespeare's work, you could Google right now and get the answer. And so I feel like we've spent a lot of time, you know, I'm not a fan of table work. I think table work is another example of us trying to pretend like what we do is difficult, right? Like, oh, I had to research all this stuff. It's like, you didn't. You could have Googled it and you would have found the answer very quickly, and we didn't all have to sit around pontificating about what we thought Shakespeare meant. We could instead Google it, and we would know remarkably quickly what Shakespeare meant, or the idea that we have to come up with biographies for what these characters felt the day before. What if you didn't do that? Because in truth, if it doesn't exist in the play, it doesn't exist. If it's not in the world, you're just making it up and playing some actor game with yourself about how difficult it is and how much work you had to do to find the character. You really don't have to do any of that. Instead, you could approach Shakespeare's work like it were any other play, because it is any other play. Every single story you know of, every single story, from the Iliad and the Odyssey to Beowulf to the Three Little Pigs, follows the exact same story structure. So if you first come from the perspective that all stories are the same, and that if you just follow the same story structure of every single other story, you're really not doing anything difficult at all. So I remind my students all the time that Freytag's pyramid, which everyone knows instinctively what Freytag's pyramid is, they just need to be reminded. So Freytag's pyramid is simply this, that every story has exposition. So whether the exposition comes in the beginning or is peppered throughout, there is exposition that tells you what came before, so that you're setting the scene for what's happening. Then you get to the inciting incident. What is the thing that happened today that changes the course of everything else? Fair? Then you have rising action that gets you to the climax. Then you have falling action. Then you have the resolution. And then you have denouement, which is the resolution to the resolution. All stories follow that exact same structure. So if we come at it from that perspective, this is really incredibly simple. So a couple of things I like to bring up before we get into some of the script analysis stuff. First, it's setting the scene that this is a play like any other play, and the idea that it isn't is nonsense. And if anyone says otherwise, it's because they've made their entire lives as Shakespeare scholars and they need you to think they're very smart. So, a couple of things you need to know to get into this. What kind of play are you in? Or what kind of play are you auditioning for? Shakespeare had three main categories. Now, people will argue about this. I argue that there's a fourth, which are the Grecian plays, which includes Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, and Timon of Athens. We can get into that another time. There's also the Apocrypha, so essentially, it will fall into these three categories: comedies, tragedies, histories. So comedies and tragedies are pretty self-explanatory. The comedies also can be romantic comedies. I am a big fan of Twelfth Night. My favorite Shakespeare comedy is Twelfth Night. I think it has the most beautiful language. Some people will argue with me about this one being a tragedy, but I believe Richard III is a tragedy, not a history. It is not a history play, it is a tragedy. Mostly because it strays more than any of the other history plays in terms of historical accuracy. And it was also built entirely on conjecture until we find out Richard III's remains were found under a 7-Eleven in the UK. This is a true story. Richard III's remains, we did not know definitively if Richard III was a hunchback until we find Richard III's remains literally under asphalt, under a 7-Eleven in the UK. That's how we found out for real that he was a hunchback. There were no, sorry, there's this piece of hair that's definitely my own dog's hair floating around in front of me. So there were no paintings. There were very few confirmed historical analyses that proven that Richard III was a hunchback. Typically, Richard III is played as a hunchback. That is the way that most people know. But I think it strays the most from all of the histories in terms of historical accuracy. So I call it a tragedy. It is also my favorite tragedy is Richard III. I want to play Richard III really bad. Like, I feel like I'm primed for it. Anyway, I just feel like I could be really evil, and I want that difficulty of the physicalization. Anyway, and then we have the history plays. So the history plays, while they are historical, they have a slant to them. Shakespeare was a proud Englishman. So Shakespeare wrote those plays from the perspective of making England the good guy and anyone else the bad guy. And so that is why the history plays are not historically accurate. Also, Julius Caesar is not considered a history play, as it is considered a tragedy. A lot of that, again, was conjecture of the time period of what they thought happened. It turns out some of that happened, but a lot of it was just a lot of pomp and circumstance, and Shakespeare wanted to write a play where I honestly think Shakespeare wanted to write a play where someone just gets murdered by everyone else, which is like a sick way. And it happens like, it's like Act 1, I think he's murdered. It's very early on in the play. So those three things give you an understanding of what you're getting into. In general, if you're thinking about what is the difference between iambic and prose, it's helpful to know what kind of play you're in. Because most of the higher ranked royal characters, they speak in iambic. So they are speaking in rhythmics, right? So, no shame but mine, I must forsooth be forced to give my hand opposed against my heart. That is Kate from Taming of the Shrew, but that is the beat that you're looking for. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's iambic. So whoever's like, I have to write out the beat, you don't have to do any of that. It will typically make itself available to you. Again, Shakespeare scholars need to eat food and pay rent just like the rest of us. And so they have spent a lot of time making us think that that's remarkably difficult. I'm sorry, Richard Perloff. So that's helpful to you because you'll notice in tragedies and comedies, and even in the history plays, the lower characters tend to speak prose. So the idea is that we were separating in terms of status based upon, are you speaking in iambic or are you speaking in prose? And the only play, actually, Michael and I did this play together, the only play of Shakespeare's that is written entirely in prose is The Merry Wives of Windsor. The Merry Wives of Windsor was specifically commissioned by Queen Elizabeth because she loved the character of Falstaff. So I like to believe that Shakespeare decided, yes, of course I'll do a play for the Queen, but I'm going to make sure that this is a play for everyone, so that he didn't seem like some royal snob who was just going to do some fanciful play with some drunkard idiot. That's who Falstaff is. Sorry, Mike. Character acting. Anyway, typecasting. So I like to think that he chose to do a play about prose because that was a fun way to get around the fact that he was literally writing a play for Queen Elizabeth. So knowing that kind of information, if you're thinking about the royal characters in the history play, in any of the three, you're going to find that they typically speak iambic. Sometimes you'll find that they speak in prose when they are speaking to someone of lesser status. What you often don't find it going the other way, that you often don't find that a lesser character is speaking in iambic when speaking to someone of royal or a higher status. So speak everyone's language. Concerning iambic, one of the easiest ways to kind of look at the script analysis of iambic is to look specifically at the punctuation. Punctuation is the keys to the kingdom in Shakespeare's work, specifically in iambic. So you're going to see three main things, the type of punctuation you see all the time, right? Periods, commas, semicolons. Periods are the end of a thought. So what can get people very confused in iambic is the way in which it's physically structured on the page. So you'll see that Shakespeare will have a line that is continuing, and then the very next line that has a comma, and the very next line will start with a capital letter. So if you are someone who is used to grammar here in the United States or literally anywhere that speaks English, you think of a capital letter starting a sentence. So often young actors will take that to mean this is an entirely new idea. Instead, that comma is simply a breath. So the way that we typically think about it in terms of beats and pauses, that comma is simply a breath in that moment before you continue that idea on. A semicolon is like two breaths, right? So that you're taking, it's more of a moment before you are finishing that thought. If you get to a period, the thought has ended. Make sense? That's one of the easiest ways to get into this iambic thing. Now, you can look up, there are many books that will show you this, counting out the beats and measures and a feminine ending. It will go on for 100 years. I think the best way to understand the work is to simply start speaking it, right? First, let me tell you whom you have condemned, not me, begotten of a shepherd swain, but issued from the progeny of kings, virtuous and holy, chosen from above, by inspiration of celestial grace to work exceeding miracles on earth. I don't have to do any of the beats and measures of any of that. if I know what my operatives are, if I understand the punctuation, it's remarkably simple to get into the work without ever having to play this game with myself of, am I doing the right thing and does it make sense? And also, who is it making sense for? That's my continual question about iambic. If the audience doesn't, if it doesn't change a single thing for the audience, then again, we're just playing actor games with ourselves. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that your audience sees and hears is your body and your voice. So whatever foolish work you've done on a script, whatever amount of time you've spent counting out the beats and measures and figuring out a feminine ending, all of that work is pointless. If it doesn't show up in your voice, they don't know it took place. Fair? It's the same way I feel about table work. Table work is exhausting. I have no idea why we spend so much time on it. It's stupid. Sorry to directors that do table work. It's stupid. Iambic versus prose, we talked about that. The other thing is, so before we kind of get into some of this stuff, because what I've brought for everyone is some script analysis stuff. Because if what I'm saying is that all plays are exactly the same, then all monologues are exactly the same. Fair? So there are ways in which this is the exact thing I give to every single actor I have ever worked with who is my student, who is my private student, who is in a play of mine. This is the roadmap as far as I am concerned for how I approach work. I feel like if you come from this perspective that all plays are the same and you have very minimal research work to do, then it's really just a matter of treating a monologue like a monologue. Interested? So if you would indulge me, I would like to give each of you a little monologue. Is that cool? Okay. Yes. So I'm gonna cast you myself. Oh, this is like my favorite monologue in the entire world. Oh, it's so good. I've made you do this 100 times.
Me? Oh.
Yep. I mean,
Yes,
obvi. Is that the end of that? Yes. I mean, if someone else is gonna play it, might as well be you.
This is the one that's like, I have to turn it out.
I'm obsessed. This is like literally one of the most beautiful monologues in the, it's so beautiful, I die. I don't wanna make you a lady, but it's a really good,
What lady are you?
Plantagenet, Henry the
Lady
Sixth
Anne
part one.
Oh.
If you're playing Richard, I'll play Lady Anne.
That Lady Anne Richard III scene is probably one of the greatest scenes in all of Shakespeare. So it's like over a dead body, and she like spits on him. Oh, it's delicious. It's so good. So I'll also hand you these quick and dirty script analysis. So a few of these things are not applicable because this means they're for an entire play, but we'll talk about the things that you can do, I mean, literally in like 10 or 15 minutes, that will illuminate a number of things for you in how you're going to approach or might approach a monologue. So, a couple of things I tell young actors to do right off the bat. The first time you read through, that's just to be like, yes, I know how to read, right? There are 3 reads that actually go into this kind of stuff. The first one is, yes, I know how words are put together on a page. The second read is all of the stuff you didn't understand from the first read. So, words you don't know how to pronounce, definitions, references that make no sense to you. Like, I'm a big fan of The Tempest. There are a ton of Roman and Greek references in The Tempest. I am not someone who, like, I didn't grow up as one of those Greek mythology kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know anything about the Greek, you know, those kids that exist that are like, I love it. Were you a Greek mythology kid? Yeah, like you know all the stuff. I just didn't grow up like that. So like I don't know any of that stuff, so I have to look a lot of it up. So that's second read is comprehension, right? What do I not know? How do I figure that out? Again, the answer is Google. Like, do not plague yourselves. I always get so frustrated when actors like, I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I just said it like this. It's like, oh, if only there were a place in your phone where you could easily figure out how to phonetically say something, or where literally now Google you'll press and some AI woman will be like, this is how you say it, idiot. Remarkably simple. Also, if you don't know the story, there are bajillion Shakespeare translators. Some of the good ones are now gone, so like No Fear Shakespeare and No Sweat Shakespeare are now paid websites, which is preposterous and another gatekeeping mechanism so that we can all act like Shakespeare is really difficult. Lit Charts still is free. It's amazing. And so you can go to Lit Charts literally right now. For the majority of them, the only one that's not correct is the Joan LaPucelle one. So at the top of most of those monologues, you'll see the act and scene in which this takes place. That one's wrong. It should be Act 1, not Act 3, I believe.
It's 5 on here.
Yeah, that's all. Yours is wrong for some reason.
Super wrong.
But you can easily look them up on lit charts right now and look at the direct contemporary English translation from Shakespearean, so that you stop doing all of this kind of kvetching about what does it mean. Scholars, far smarter than myself, and most people that I know have spent 400 years trying to figure out what this stuff means. Stop worrying about that and start spending your time going, okay, here's what it means. Now, what are your playable actions within knowing what it means? So once you do that first read of like just proving you know how reading works, you do that second read, which is for comprehension. Now I actually know what these words mean. That third read is a synthesis of the two, right? We're now taking, okay, we finally understand what it means. Now, how do I apply what it means to what I am actionably going to do as an actor on stage? And the best way to do that is your operative words. So once you figure out if it's iambic or prose, it's pretty easy to figure out. Iambic doesn't look like a sentence. It looks like someone went in and just added a bunch of commas to a thought, right? Prose looks like what you would read today in like a Harry Potter book. It's remarkably simple. So figuring that out first is very helpful to you. Are you someone who is of royal or a higher status? Or are you someone who is more lower status? Or are you someone in the Merry Wives of Windsor where they all speak prose? That gives you a good idea of like who you are. Then you're gonna go to operative word. This is the exact same thing I would say you do for every single monologue. Operative word is the word within a sentence that gives that sentence context. I want to go to the store. 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 I don't want to go to the pharmacy. I want to go to the store. We do this in everyday life. The majority of acting methodologies are only meant to mimic what we do naturally. But something happens to us when we come up here. Our bodies go, like actors always say, what do I do with my hands, right? I find it a funny question because as you're sitting there right now, not a single one of you is like, what do I do with my hands? It's not even something you're thinking of. It's something that you naturally do. And so the same is true for operative word. I have a very strange way. I put very strange emphasis on certain words. It's how my voice is recognizable, quite frankly, because I have a weird way of speaking. But I do that naturally. I don't think about, just now I said think was my operative word. I don't think about the way that I say things. I just say them. That is what we are trying to do when we're talking about operative words. So I would immediately go to operative words. So far, in terms of understanding how you're approaching this monologue, right? You've done 3 reads of it. Most of these monologues are no more than 60 to 90 seconds at best. Like that Viola monologue, which I use that Viola monologue all the time. It's literally the monologue that's used in this character analysis sheet. At the very end, you'll see it's the monologue I use. That monologue is maybe 25 to 30 seconds. It's not a long piece. So far, you've maybe put in about 6 minutes reading 3 times. You've probably now put in another 5 minutes Googling stuff you didn't understand or looking at the contemporary translation. So at most, we're 11 minutes into this thing, right? That's a very small amount of time. So 11 minutes into this. You're then going to go to the operative word, right? That is the thing. Operative word and beat shifts are the 2 top tier things that you have to approach for any monologue and any script analysis. So, for example, beat shifts are a change in thought or action. Shakespeare loves a beat shift. He lives and breathes in a beat shift. A beat shift is often seen in a semicolon. Semicolons are a really good indication that there's a change in thought or action. That Kate monologue is such a good example. No shame at mine, I must forsooth be forced to give my hand opposed against my heart unto a mad-brained Rudesby full of spleen, because she has a realization that it's not just that she is having to give her heart opposed to what she really wants, but also to a guy who's a dick. That's the realization, and it happens in real time, and it becomes a beat shift. It becomes less about, I am being forced to do something I don't want to do, but also, this guy's a dick. That becomes a thing. I have not cursed at all, I just want to say. And I feel like dick is fine. Of all the curse words I could be saying,
As long as you're talking about Petruchio, that's perfectly
I
fine.
am
Yes,
talking
absolutely.
about Petruchio.
Yes.
Those kinds of beat shifts. So a beat shift is a change in thought or intention. We do this all the time. I literally just did it. I went from saying Petruchio is a dick to then making sure that I said to that camera what a good job I've done of not cursing. That's an entire change in thought or intention. We do these things naturally. If we can score our scripts, this process is called script scoring or script analysis. I say scoring because I think it's a physical action that you score the script. So you would underline your operative words. Typically, there are 1 to 2 operative words in every single sentence. And if you're thinking of Shakespeare's work in terms of a sentence, you do not get a sentence until you get a period. So that gets a little hinky with some of the longer-winded characters. Hamlet, for example, who spends 3.5 hours whining before he finally gets to the point. Shakespeare tends to give a lot of commas and semicolons in those really long monologues. But in general, you'll find 1 to 2 operatives per sentence. So you're underlining those operatives, and you'll know they're wrong if they sound stupid. That's the easiest way to figure it out. So rather than, again, kvetching about like, I don't know if I chose the right operative, say it out loud and you'll know if it's stupid. Like if I said to Nora, do you want to go to the store? And she was like, I want to go to the pharmacy. I'd be like, no, I was saying you versus that person. It would be a strange way for her to respond to me. That's how I would know the operatives are wrong in terms of a scene. So you know instinctively if those things are incorrect because you're human beings. So rather than kind of play this game with yourselves, say it out loud and you'll know instantly if it sounds stupid that that's the wrong operative. Then you just change the operative. Instead of beating yourself up about like, I don't understand Shakespeare. It's like, no, you don't understand minimal failure in your first stab at something. Does that kind of speak your language? So after you do those things, that would be my first stab. I use first stab or rough draft all the time for the first kind of stab you're taking at this. You're about 15 minutes in. It will take about 15 minutes to do a short, quick and dirty script analysis. So we'll do some of this together if you're interested. You should keep that monologue. It's a good monologue. I'm going to do the monologue. What monologue did I give you? Plantagenet? Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good one for you too. I tried to give you a monologue. Sorry, Lady Anne. That Lady Anne scene is so good. Like I die for that Lady Anne scene. I'm making students do it right now because I just want to watch it. It's like it's in their scene study class. And I'm like, you're doing this scene. And they're like, do I really have to spit on him? Yes. You want to be in theater? Yeah, you got to spit on that guy. He'll be fine. Although it is the time of COVID, I should really rethink that. No, I'm going to make them do it anyway. They all spit on each other. They all swap spit all the time. They'll be fine. Theater kids. So then kind of once you do that first quick and dirty, the next step would be characterization. So there are many different ways to do characterization that are not fraught and don't involve all your teeny tiny little emotions. I am a movement director. I come from the perspective that movement in your body and your voice are your in to character. I am not someone who comes from a Meisner-Stanislavski-based perspective, which says you have to use your own emotional life as your way into the character. One, because I think emotions are unreliable. I know this because every single person in this room and every 4 people who are watching online, I know your emotions are unreliable because you have fallen in love with someone that you knew good and well in your brain was a stupid person to fall in love with. But your emotions were like, no, I love him. That's how I know emotions are unreliable. And I also know that actors, our job is to be reliable. Our job is to be able to replicate is an itchy word, but to be able to replicate each night those feelings. And so if what you're doing is continually dredging up like the worst thing that ever happened to you, that's psychologically damaging over time. And so you'll often find actors, like I always get so annoyed with the actors who have to like stand backstage to get themselves together after a difficult scene. It's like, why? You just pretended it. Nothing happened to you. No, and literally 0 things happened to you. You should be able to put on character like a coat and take it off like a coat. And if you can't, then you're emotionally invested in pretend, and that is a problem. It makes 0 sense. You cannot continue to do that. There is an end game to that. And if this is your profession, You have to be able to, I mean, if you're in a 9-month run of a play and you're dredging up the worst thing that ever happened to you 6 nights a week, you are going to be a damaged individual. So instead, what if we worked from a different perspective? In that the body is what tells us. And so we use some of these characterization techniques to give you a technical groundwork so that you know where you're going. But when you step out on stage, we're not worrying about the worst thing that ever happened to me or the time some guy made me feel terrible about myself, right? I don't have to worry about any of that. Instead, I set the technical groundwork, I prepare my body and my voice, and I go out and pull the cord, make it go. And then when it's done, I turn it off because it is that simple. Again, we would love for it to be very difficult. That is a lie we have told ourselves because we do not want to admit that we play pretend for money. We would love for people to think this is very hard and that you can't possibly do it. And the thing that I think does make it more difficult, in quotation marks, is the anxiety and the stress notion of it. It's very difficult on your body and your voice. It is not normal to speak for 3.5 hours a night for 6 nights a week for 9 months or 2 years. If you add to that singing and dancing in a musical, we're doing something that is not normal. And so that kind of body and vocal stress, that's legitimate stress. But we have plenty of things that we can do to fight that kind of stress. And certainly that's a healthier way of approaching it than fighting the emotional stress of your own lives on stage every single night. So I come from this technical perspective first. So there are a number of things that you can use in a monologue in an audition sense. So far we've put 15 minutes into your script analysis. 15 minutes. So you had your first, second, and third read, and then you've gone in and done your operative words and your beat shifts. That's about 15 to 20 minutes of work just to kind of lay the groundwork. There are also, I'm going to touch briefly on memorization. The easiest, in my opinion, the easiest work to memorize is Shakespeare's. I know the monologues that I keep just kind of like throwing up each time, I have been doing those monologues for 15 years. That Joan of Arc monologue was my grad school classical monologue. The Kate monologue from Taming of the Shrew. I was cast as Kate in Taming of the Shrew before I decided not to go to DC. Sorry, guys. They were not happy. I've done that monologue 1,000 times. That Viola monologue, I've done 1,000 times. Those monologues, I've probably done hundreds of monologues over the entirety of my career. Those monologues I always remember. I never have to go back to the book, never, not once, because it exists in that rhythmic tone. And also it exists in the muscle memory of your mouth. If you have to say these words over and over and over again, it's just like a dancer. At a certain point in choreography, a dancer is not thinking 5, 6, 7, 8. They are simply allowing their bodies to move. Actors do this all the time. It's why I get so annoyed with actors who say this. Actors are like, I learn my lines better in blocking. Well, of course you do, you moron. You're connecting the lines to walking down stage left. That's why you're learning it faster, because you're connecting it to your muscle memory. You're not learning it faster because you do better in blocking with everyone else. No, you don't. It's because you've connected the blocking to the words. And at a certain point in a play, your body goes there and suddenly you're just saying these words. The longest run of a play I've ever done is 4 months, which is a pretty long run of a play. At a certain point in that play, it was like I just kind of turned it on and just kind of walked around and things came out. I just said the words, I did the stuff. You don't have to think about it even half as much because your body and your voice are doing that work for you. So there's a muscle memory associated with memorization that is very specific with Shakespeare's work. So there are a couple of newfangled technological things that you can do. So there's an app. God, I swear to God, it's just like literally my own cat and dog hair floating in front of me, which checks out. So there are a few things you can do in terms of memorization. There's a fancy new app called an application for your phone, for those who don't know.
Oh.
I know, you're welcome. I had to learn it myself. Anyway, so there's an app called Line Learner. It is a $3.99 one-time purchase. Literally all of my students at Marshall have downloaded it. I have a number of different methods for how you learn lines, and it literally has every single method that I use is in Line Learner. So since everyone has a smarty-phone nowadays, using your voice recorder to record your work, let me put it this way. The best way to create long-term memory is to take two of the senses, you need two senses smooshed together, because then you're literally creating new synapses in the brain that are creating long-term memory versus short-term memory. So everyone learns how to memorize wrong. Some idiot English teacher did this to you in high school or middle school, and it never goes away. Like when you had to, I don't know, some people had to memorize like the Declaration of Independence. You know, you had some stupid memorization thing that you had to do in school. And what someone taught you, because they're dumb, was that you look at it, and see if you know it, look at it again, say it out. Right, that's the dumbest possible way to memorize. It is the least efficient, and it only creates short-term memory. That's all you're doing. And so it's like when you cram for a test and you take the test and maybe you do well, and the second it's over, your brain kind of dumps all of that information. And if I were to ask you 3 hours later some of the questions that were on that test, you would be incapable of answering them. So instead, when you can combine two of the senses, that is when you are creating long-term memory. And that's memory that's helpful to me as a director and helpful to you as an actor, because it means that we can jump in and out very easily. Anyone who's ever worked with me knows I tend to be a side coacher, because I like to coach you in terms of exactly what you're doing in that moment. I always hated it when I would go through an entire scene, or worse, an entire play, and at the end I would get this deluge of notes. And they were like, remember in Act 1, Scene 2 when you did this? I was like, absolutely not. I do not remember that at all. I do not remember that moment. But I'm going to say, yes, thank you, because I want to get over with notes. So instead, I will stop in those very moments, and I will side coach and say, well, what does this mean? And how do you get that? And what do you want? And what if we tried this instead? And then I say, okay, go back to this line. It's very difficult to do that kind of work if you have only used your short-term memory in order to memorize. It's very difficult for you to jump back in, because most people, when you're memorizing using your short-term memory, you're memorizing in terms of stacking, right? So it's this moment leads into this moment, leads into this moment. And if I interrupt any of that, you have to go all the way to the beginning to find your way again. If it instead is in your long-term memory, which instead of stacking tends to stagger, if that makes sense in terms of how memory science works, it tends to stagger things, meaning you can pick up on it much easier. It's like you're kind of grabbing. Hello. Oh, that person just like, I don't know if they're coming in here. Yep, they look like it. Okay. All right. Anyway, so when you want to create long-term memory, you're wanting to stack the senses. Your sensorial awareness is what is creating long-term memory. So recording the monologue, putting it in an earbud, and saying it in real time while also reading it. Remember, we're stacking the senses. So I'm visually in tune. Hello. I'm visually here. I'm auditorily there. I'm also doing that muscle memory of my own verbal happening all at the same time. The more you can do that, the better. And again, with Shakespeare's work, if you can get into the rhythm, your life is significantly easier. You can choose any one of those monologues if you're interested. Yeah, pick your poison, kitten. It's not even.
I was just curious what was going on.
Talking about Shakespeare auditions and trying to just prove that they are like any other audition.
Okay.
Because they are. And Shakespeare scholars, I'm sorry, I guess, with your doctorates. Okay, so anyway, so you could have the recording. I like to write my monologues. I really like the kinetic idea of kind of how I am moving, seeing the words in my own handwriting. We recognize our own handwriting more than we recognize anything else. And so to a certain extent, it gives you that idea that these are actually your words, and there's a sense of ownership from writing your monologue down. I will do that while I say it and while I'm listening to it. Also, once you have blocking or you have a set, I do what's called mini set. So all the actors who say, I learned my lines better in blocking. It's like, right, so let's recreate that idea for you then. So that if you have blocking in a monologue, you literally would do the blocking with the lines as you're reading them and listening to them. Again, just stacking as many of those sensorial awareness things at the same time so that we're creating that long-term memory. We're also creating that long-term memory faster. I come from a generation of AOL Instant Messenger. If you're not aware of what that is, you're a young person. So anyway, I'm a really good typer. Like I'm super fast at typing. So I will also say the monologue out loud and type it at the same time while listening to it, while looking at my own, so that anytime that you want to get it into your bones quickly, that's the way to do it. And you can spend, now where I am in my memorization process, I don't know, I think it probably, for any of those monologues, probably 2 or 3 hours. And I've kind of sunk it into my long-term memory. Now you do have to continue to go back because you gotta continue to make yourself aware of it, especially if you're someone who memorizes through speed. People who memorize through speed tend to have a very difficult time slowing their voices and their mouths down. They tend to be rushed through everything because they've memorized through a rhythm, which is typically very quick tempo. With Shakespeare's work, again, if you can find the rhythm, it reveals itself to you much more quickly, certainly more quickly than contemporary playwrights. It is far more difficult to memorize the work of Neil LaBute or Paula Vogel or Susan Laurie Parks or Lauren Gunderson because they're written as contemporary speakers. So there are ums, there are dots, there are a lot of ands and likes. Neil LaBute loves a like. All of those are very difficult because it can break that idea of what your through line is. Shakespeare doesn't do any of that. And so it's all remarkably straightforward. The same is true of Ibsen, the same is true of Chekhov. Those are playwrights that are remarkably easy to memorize because they're very straightforward. And any of the pauses that kind of exist are typically pauses that actors are building in. They are not necessarily in that work. So we've gone over the little memorization thing. I like to have the memorization talk, and I like everyone to know about this Line Learner app. I'm gonna see if I can make them like sponsor me. I wanna be like a Line Learner influencer because I ruined my ability to be a Taco Bell influencer because I said too many negative things on Twitter. Listen, they do not have to put those chips in that weird bag. They don't have to do that. They choose to do that. And there's no chip to cheese consistency. The ratio doesn't make sense. Okay. Now you know a little bit more about me. So after you've spent that 20 minutes doing your 3 reads, doing your operatives, doing your beat shifts, after you have gone and started to memorize this thing, I would not memorize until you do that initial 3 reads, operative, and beat shifts. Memorization is unhelpful to you at that point because you're memorizing out of the clear blue. You need to know where you're going. Then you have some characterization things you can do. So the global character analysis is far more interesting if you know the entire play, right? So yes, should you read the entire play? Absolutely. It's stupid not to. Like if you're auditioning for Shakespeare, you better go and at least kind of know what you're talking about. But also, I'm not opposed to film adaptations. There's no reason not to read the play and then watch a film adaptation. And then there's no reason not to look at the summaries. Again, for 400 years, people have been reading this man's work. Stop worrying about understanding every single stupid thing and work smarter, not harder. Let smarter people far smarter than me, I'm gonna let them do that work and I will do the work that I know how to do, which is be an actor. So the global character analysis is what does the playwright say about you? So the playwright, Shakespeare's a little different in this way, and so is Euripides and any of the Greeks are a little different in this way that there aren't as many stage directions in Shakespeare's work. Now we know now that the reason there aren't as many stage directions in his work is that the King's Men were doing some of that blocking themselves. There also wasn't nearly the amount of blocking that we put into a play now. It just wasn't something that was a typical understanding of how a play was put together. Again, people often say Shakespeare's work was meant to be heard, not seen, and so a lot less importance was put upon where does the actor go and when. So blocking tends not to be the way in which we're approaching Shakespeare's work. He tends not to tell us that in the stage directions, but instead Shakespeare does the same thing that other classical playwrights do. They give us an understanding of how we should feel about that character by how other people feel about that character. It's just like real life, right? We are influenced by how those around us say what they say about us. So what does the playwright say about you? What do other characters say about you? If every other character in the play is like, this woman is the devil, and then the thing that you say about you is like, I am an angelic angel, we know that there's a disconnect between the global view of that character and the personal view of that character. That is what global characterization is. Understanding what the playwright says about you, what you say about you, and what others say about you. That will give you a fuller understanding of who that character is in terms of the play. So that's one way of going about characterization. The other that I use this all the time, I think it is one of the easiest ways to understand character relationships. It's interesting approaching it this way in terms of a monologue because it matters who you're speaking to. So there's a thing called the parent-child paradigm, which is a psychological concept which says that all relationships can be broken down into the parent-child paradigm, which means, is it parent-parent? So two adults, one does not have dominion over the other. They are on the exact same playing field. So that's parent-parent. Parent-child. One has dominion over the other, and the other, the child, is constantly at play. So one has responsibilities, the other does not. This happened in that Viola scene. Right before Viola enters, Olivia is speaking to this fool. And it's very clear early on that the fool is constantly at play and making it's Shakespeare, so he makes like 5 or 6 dick jokes because it's a Shakespeare comedy. Shakespeare loved a dick joke. So he's making like dick jokes, and you can tell that they are in a parent-child paradigm. He, the fool, is constantly at play, while Olivia is constantly being like, oh my God, what do you want? That shows right there that it's in the parent-child paradigm, and that tells you who has the power. Does that make sense? So then you have child-child. Child-child means they're both at play. They are both, one does not have dominion over the other, and they are simply having a good time. You see this a lot in Midsummer Night's Dream, when two are at play at the same time. You see this to a certain extent in that Olivia Viola scene, the scene that involves Make Me a Willow Cabin at Your Gate. Because what happens is, Olivia says to Viola, if you were in love with me, right? If you were a man and you were in love and you loved a woman so much, what would you say? And so she plays this pretend moment where it's really what she would say to, I don't want to say the prince, what is his name?
Orsino.
Yes, thank you. What Viola would really say to Orsino. Instead, she has to say it through the guise of being a man, saying it to Olivia. And so they're both two children in that moment, because she says, make me a willow cabin at your, what she essentially says in that monologue is, I would be a slave for you. And it so moves Olivia that Olivia falls in love with Viola. Make sense? They're both two children in that moment. One does not have dominion over the other. They're both existing in this kind of fantasy moment. So the parent-child paradigm becomes another characterization in. Then show, hide, throw away is another concept that every single thing we say and do can be broken down into one of 3 things. You're either showing something, you're hiding something, or you're throwing something away. So for every single line that you say, you are doing one of those 3 things. Showing something, hiding something, or throwing something away. That is actionable. If Viola is saying, make me a willow cabin at your gate and call upon my soul within the house, she's not hiding anything. She's showing you everything. That is a show monologue, right? You could also change it throughout the Joan La Pucelle monologue. First, let me tell you whom you have condemned, not me, begotten of a shepherd's swing, but issued from the progeny of kings. She's showing. She goes through and throws things away. Sorry, I have to go through the whole monologue. No, I just went into an entirely different monologue. I have them here, for the love of God. Maybe I don't.
Oh.
It doesn't matter. Anyway, she changes it throughout. At a certain point, she almost throws it away. She says, I have never had to do with wicked spirits but you, who are polluted with, because in the beginning, she's trying to get herself out of this. She's saying to them, listen, I am not this person. Halfway through, she's like, screw all this. In fact, I am better than you. No one has ever thought me unholy except for you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even be in this position. At no point does she hide. She has nothing to hide from. Maybe in the end when she says, I'll be at heaven's gate and I will cry for vengeance for you. Kind of speak your language. So show, hide, throw away. It also makes everything so much less complicated. So I'm not a big fan of action verbs. There's this is one of the beginning actor characterization or script analysis things that you do is to figure out an action verb for every single thing you do in the play. So, are you trying to eviscerate them? We also love, there's that actor's thesaurus. I don't know if you've seen it. Every actor I know has one. It's just a stupid thesaurus with a bunch of action verbs so that you can pick the one that sounds like the most fancy. It's dumb. My point is, what happens is it makes us feel like every single word you say, every single sentence has an action verb attached to it. The problem with that idea is now we're really just jumping from action verb to action verb. We're really not playing anything large or over a long period of time. There's no arc to it. Instead, we're just playing this game of like, I'm going to tell them I'm eviscerating them, and usually they're not doing that. Or I'm coddling him. They're not doing that. It's just another way to, again, make us feel like we're doing something. Instead, if we hone it in and make it very simplistic, is it parent-child paradigm? Are you showing, hiding, or throwing away? What do the other characters say about you? And then wants and needs. This is a very simple one. What do you want? That's your objective. How do you get it? Those are your tactics. What happens if you don't? Those are the stakes. The stakes are always life and death, whether it is Charlotte's Web and the Three Little Pigs, or it is A Doll's House, or it is, why can I not remember that show you just did? Crucible. Or it is The Crucible, where it is quite literally life and death for these people. I mean, I would argue in A Doll's House, Nora believes that what is happening to her is life or death. That's why she makes those decisions. All of the stakes are always high, because in plays are about interesting people, and interesting people, especially when we get into these kind of like heavy-handed plays, they say yes. They go the extra mile. They do the thing that us in real life can't do. So the stakes are always life and death, whether it's a comedy. I mean, in Sylvia the dog being shipped off to a suburban family is life and death for her and Greg, and it turns out for the wife whose name I can't remember either. Kate. Jesus.
I was gonna say Harvard.
I work here. I am a professor. I have to tell that to my students a lot. So, what I would like to do, let me see what time it is. Oh, I'm doing good. I know. What I would like to do, if you're interested, is give you a little bit of time to at least look at like operative words and see if maybe that is a way that you can have an in without having to worry about iambic. If you do want to do some Googling, please feel free. They have Wi-Fi here. And then if you're interested, maybe we could stand up and see some of them. Cool? I'll do some of my monologues for you too, so you don't feel like you're just like performing for me. Cool? So you want to try like maybe like 5 minutes? Would that be interesting to you? Okay. I'll set my little timer. And then I'm going to vape in the corner. That baby is mad. Okay. Okay, so that is time.
That was my favorite part of the live stream.
I know, is everyone enjoying this time while everyone's working?
Still 10 viewers, we're good.
Oh, yeah. 10 viewers. So if you want, what I'd like to do is kind of get everyone up on their feet, because I think we spend a lot of time with our heads in books, and I think that's negative time spent. And because I am a movement director, I will start first by asking you to get into what is called your relative neutral. So relative neutral essentially is your hip width distance apart. Most people, a lot of people have a very narrow base. This happens, women tend to have a very narrow base. When you have a very narrow base, you're putting yourself in the position that you can easily get knocked off of your center. So instead, kind of holding that space. And in terms of an audition, I don't like actors like to take up a lot of space, right? They'll do a very wide audition, which is not helpful to you in terms of casting. So actors want to own this entire space. It's unhelpful in terms of how I, a director, am looking at you on stage. Instead, if you keep it more of a narrow focus, you now have given yourself the ability to do many more things, than spending your time walking through the space. Fine, you know how to walk from one side of a stage to another. It turns out that I'm going to ask much more of you than that in an audition. So I tell actors, maintain a triangle. All directing is done through triangles. Anyone who says otherwise is a liar. All directing is done through triangles. So instead, if you make this the very point top of your triangle, you really only have so many places to go. You can walk downstage right. You can come center. You can say something here. If you want to go back to that spot, I think that's fine. You can go then back to this triangle and then make your way back to the top. That becomes an easy way to set what your blocking is in terms of an audition monologue, so that you're spending your time, rather than, again, proving you can make your way from point A to point B, motivating that blocking by keeping yourself within a very strict space, actors will often say, well, if I could move wherever I wanted, it would be amazing. It's like, well, you can't. That's never going to be possible for you. And then in fact, the creativity and your artistry comes out in playing within the rules. I'm, oddly enough, a big fan of the rules, because then I know what I can play and do, and also I can figure out how to break them, right? So if you know what the rules are, it's easier to make sure you're honing yourself in. Anytime you take all of the guardrails off for actors, what you find are sloppy, messy performances that are not grounded in anything, because we're just following our intuition. It's like, well, your intuition isn't that great. That's why directors exist. And also, again, something happens to you up here. Something happens to us that we say, what do I do with my hands? Or actors who have slow feet, it's my biggest annoyance in the universe. Like Kate in Taming of the Shrew. If Kate in Taming of the Shrew, when she's saying, no shame but mine, I must forsooth be forced, it is a very quick monologue. She is very angry. They are preparing for this huge wedding that she does not want to have. If she's saying those lines and going, no shame but mine, I must forsooth be forced to give my hand opposed against my heart, and you're doing these slow, weird feet, it doesn't make a single ounce of sense that that's how you're moving through the world. But actors love to walk really slowly. So your feet should match what it is that you're doing. I mean, I would even argue in the Joan La Pucelle monologue, I don't know that you need to move at all. She's about to be burned at the stake. So instead, taking a wider base, keeping your hands here, now you have something to fight against that you didn't have before. If she's just standing there begging, there's nothing that she gets out of that. There is a real fight taking place there. It is an actual fight for her life. At the end of this monologue, she will be taken away and burned at the stake. That is what happens. So you need to give yourself something to fight against. And again, this is one of those things where you can constrict yourself so that she is literally fighting for her life. And we see it physicalized in real time, right? With Richard III. Richard III, that very famous production of Richard III, was it Olivier? With the sticks, with the canes? Yeah. That is a fast-paced, remarkably difficult physicalization. And in that monologue, he cannot be spidering all over the place. It doesn't serve the monologue. And in an audition sense, you only have a minute to make your case. Don't spend your minute proving to me that you know how to spider around. Spend that minute proving to me that this is actually how he exists in the world. This is far more interesting to me than watching someone prove all of the weird things that Richard could do. Yeah? So in terms of, in that kind of understanding, giving yourself those roadblocks is the easiest way to create an effective audition piece, whether it is Shakespeare or anyone else. Those guardrails create it for you. And if you've done this kind of work, then it becomes remarkably simple to figure out where you're going and what you're doing. Kind of speak your language? Cool. So, I don't need a phone in my pocket. Oh, I love you too, Mike Nagley. I was getting buzzed and I was like, what is happening? So, I won't steal any of your monologues, but I'll do Kate from Taming of the Shrew, this monologue that I've been talking about all night that I've done 6 quadrillion times. So, hi, my name is Leah Turley. I will be doing Kate from Taming of the Shrew. No shame but mine. I must forsooth be forced to give my hand opposed against my heart unto a mad-brained rudesby full of spleen who hath wooed in haste and plans to wed at leisure. I told you, he was a frantic fool, hiding his bitter jests in blunt behavior, and to be noted for a merry man. He'll woo 1,000 point the day of marriage, make feasts, invite friends, proclaim the banns, yet never means to wed where he hath wooed. And now must poor Catherine, I can't even remember the rest of the monologue, but pretty good, yeah? I don't know why I got so messed up. Now must poor Catherine say something. She gets mad. See? And now he must be again. Anyway, I'm an actress, I promise. But the thing that I think is important about that is very little blocking takes place. I literally stepped forward. That was it. And in terms of gesture, I want to take your attention here and here and here. My eye line doesn't change much throughout. Does that speak your language? actors love to change their visual perspective so that I see a lot of actors who do a lot of looking, right? Instead, 3 points is all you need. The same way, in terms of your blocking, 3 points are all you need. You don't need to do much more than that because Shakespeare's words, if you remember them, do it for you. Kind of speak your language. So, would you like to try? Yes, no, kind of? We only have so much time left, so you can like do it real quick and then no one will be mean to you. Hello, Nora.
Hi.
I think we've done this model before.
We have. It's been a long time though, actually. Yeah.
Oh, lo, there's Mad Petruchio's wife. If she'll please him, come marry her.
Yep, that's it.
Would have been helpful.
Yeah.
Would have been helpful a minute ago.
I didn't do it. I only did it like half a trillion times, so I don't remember it as well. Okay, so this is, can I ask you a couple questions?
Yes,
about it
please,
first?
please,
Okay.
please.
So we did work this, but it has been many years.
Sure.
And I had never played this role.
Yes,
So
you'd be a great
I
Viola.
would like some refreshers,
Sure.
actually, on the story. So I believe this is Viola in disguise as Cesario.
Yes.
Delivering Orsino's message of love to
Yes.
Olivia, and she's
That Viola wishes Orsino would say
correct. Yes.
to
So
her.
at this point in the play, Viola is already feeling hot feelings about Orsino,
Yes.
right? But has to deliver his message of love to another woman.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe in this specific instance, this is Olivia saying, "Well, what would you say if you were in love with me?"
Correct.
Right? Okay. So,
Yes.
So I have identified. Do you want me to talk about what I did, or you want me to
Sure.
do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, go ahead,
No, no,
please.
Okay. So I started it by with a little bit of exasperation because like, oh my god, I don't want to be here anyway.
Yes.
But then throughout, Viola's sort of shifting back to thinking about actually the love that she's feeling.
Yes.
Okay, and then catching herself at the end.
Yeah.
Yes?
Well,
Can
because
I-
at the
yeah.
yes, let's
no,
see
please,
it.
please, please.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
well, and I would say, I would just add something that I think about is you have some dialogue that comes before this
Yes.
that kind of sets the scene of Viola continually saying, like, no, he loves you, I promise. Like, here, yeah, girl, totally. And it isn't until she finally says, that I think she finally says, like, okay, so what would you say?
Mm-hmm.
That Viola's like, this is my one opportunity to hear the things I wish were said to me.
Say it out loud.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that makes it remarkably real. I think in terms of Viola's character arc, this is a realization for her.
Yes.
That it's not until this point. I mean, I think she thinks she has love feelings, but when she starts to say this, and then too, Olivia's reaction to it.
So her own discovery of her own
Yes.
feelings. Okay.
And it's like saying, you know, it's kind of this teenage notion of like, if he just said to me these things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That if you play it with that kind of discovery or realization, that as she's saying it, it's like, oh my God, if he said that to me, I would literally melt.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll try it. Okay. Hi, I'm Nora Ankrum. This is Viola from 12th. Make me a willow cabin at your gate and call upon my soul within the house. Write loyal cantons of contemned love and sing them loud even in the dead of night. Halloo your name to the reverberate hills and make the babbling gossip of the air cry out, Olivia. Oh, you should not rest between the elements of air and earth, but you should pity me.
I love that. Can I tell you what I
Yeah,
thought was
please.
very effective?
Yes.
That walk forward on, you seem to take it, sing them aloud even in the dead of night.
Yes.
So that it was hallelujah. And the cool thing about Shakespeare, I'm a big fan of making words sound like what they mean. Right? Halloo your name to the reverberate hills and make the babbling gossip of the air cry out, Olivia. That is a sick realization.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like as soon as you did it, I was like, yes, oh my God, do that again. So that you build it up. I'm also a big fan of taking the air out of it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that you take us on a journey really nice and big and then pop that balloon.
Yeah.
Because you're also popping it on yourself, right?
Right.
It's that same feeling that you're having is the same feeling we're going to have.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, I thought it was very
Yeah.
interesting.
Thank you.
Good?
Yes, yes.
That was
thank you,
really
thank you.
lovely. Anyone else want to give her a try? There's only like 10 minutes left, so you will not be. Yes, I agree. It's like, okay. Yes.
No, you
At
go.
the same
please.
No, I lied. That one.
Both at the same time.
Both at the same
Oh, it is, isn't it? Oh, no, it's Joan LaPicella. I thought it was Lady Anne. You're Lady Anne. So it's interesting that you're doing this right on the heels of Crucible,
Right?
right? It's just another woman we burned at the stake.
Close.
Right. So, are you familiar with Joan of Arc?
With Joan of Arc, but not with the play.
Sure. So, I mean, Joan of Arc plays a very small role in Henry VI Part 1. It is not one of the lead roles of the play. It's one of those standout monologues that is not typically, like, people don't die to play Joan of Arc except for you get to play, you get to say this monologue. So I think if I were you, I might start, if you want, if you're interested, I can hold it for you and you can
Okay.
put your hands behind your back.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
Is that good for you? Good place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Gracie. I'm doing Joan of Arc. First, let me tell you who you have condemned. Not me, begotten of a shepherd swain, but issued from the progeny of kings, virtuous and holy, chosen from above by inspiration of celestial grace to work exceeding miracles on earth. I never had to do with wicked spirits, but you that are polluted with your lust, stained with the guiltless blood of innocence, corrupt, and tainted with 1,000 vices, because you want the grace that others have. You judge it straight a thing impossible to compass wonders, but by the help of devils. No, misconceived. Joan of Arc hath been a virgin from her tender infancy, chaste and immaculate in very thought, whose maiden blood, thus rigorously effused, will cry for vengeance at the gates of heaven.
Get it. Your operatives were slamming. So, can I say something similar to what Nora and I talked about? Making some words sound like what they are. Virtuous and holy. So that you then have, it's like playing the vowels and then playing the consonants, right? So this happens a lot, and not just in Shakespeare's work, in a ton of, like you'll find in Doll's House, just because I just did it, you'll find that the person who is doing a lot of those vowel sounds is typically a person who is weaker in terms of, in that parent-child paradigm. So Nora, in that play, uses a lot of vowel sounds and really opens those vowels, as opposed to Dr. Rank, or as opposed to Krogstad, who really hit all of their
Who's sharp
consonants.
and-
Yeah. And so if you look at, I never had to do with wicked spirits, but you, who are polluted with your lusts, stained with the guiltless blood of innocence,
Yeah.
right? So that you can make that change in playing here in the top when we're trying to make the case. We're literally saying, first let me tell you who, like you are
Yeah.
trying to say, like, this is not who I am. And then something happens, right? Something either happens to her. I mean, the cool thing about Joan of Arc is that it could just be divine inspiration.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, she thinks God's talking to her, the angel, somebody's talking to her. So at a certain point, something changes, and then you can take those vowels and then hit all your consonants. It's an interesting way, because then to compass wonders, but by help of devils,
Yeah.
you can play it within that same thing. Would you be interested in doing that first part?
Sure.
And then just seeing if you can make that switch from vowels to
Okay.
consonants?
Not me, begotten of a shepherd swain, but issued from the progeny of kings, virtuous and holy, chosen from above by inspiration of celestial grace to work exceeding miracles on earth. I never had to do with wicked spirits, but you that are polluted with your lusts, stained with the guiltless blood of innocence, corrupt and tainted with 1,000 vices.
Yes, that was, yes, do you notice the difference? You should keep that monologue, kid. So we have a few minutes left. Would you, maybe we should go with some questions. Do you want to try?
I'll go if you want.
Michael T. Murdoch. Would anyone else like to go?
We got plenty of time.
Michael?
I have enough voice to get through it. We'll see.
I know, how are you feeling?
Great.
Your voice sounds good. It's better than the other day.
Better than it was a week ago when I needed it. As I intend to prosper and repent, so thrive I in my dangerous attempt of hostile arms. Myself confound, heaven and fortune bar my happy hours. Day, yield me not the light, nor night thy rest. Be opposite all planets of good luck to my proceedings, if with pure heart's love, immaculate devotion, holy thoughts I tender not thy beauteous princely daughter. In her consists my happiness and thine. Without her follows to this land and me, to thee, herself, and many a Christian soul, death, desolation, ruin, and decay. It cannot be avoided, but this, it will not be avoided, but by this. Therefore, good mother, I must call you so. Be the attorney of my love to her. Plead what I will be, not what I have been, not my deserts, but what I will deserve. Urge the necessity and state of times, and be not peevish fond in great designs.
Whoop whoop.
Something like that.
So, the thing I think that's most interesting about Richard's character, Richard does not see himself as evil. I think it's specifically important because of what Mike just did. Mike played a lot of the vowels, right? I mean, if you think in terms of, I often think of this consonant vowel thing, and I also think your operatives were slamming. Did you do, I mean, you're also an iambic person. Yeah. So he was like, yes.
Just as a human being.
He's one of those.
Here's
He believes
here's
in
how I
it.
mark my script.
You're such a piece of shit.
There's 4 sections of it.
I hate him so much. But also, not a bad idea in terms of beat shifts, because what you just did was all of the beat shifts.
Right.
So what I mean by that is, if Richard, again, going back to global character analysis, if everyone else sees you as a monster, but you see yourself as a hero, you don't play the monster. It gets him nowhere. He has to play himself as heroic. Does that make sense? And he has to play the vowels. If he plays all of the consonants, he's leading directly into that idea that he is evil. Evil people typically don't think that they're evil. Most people don't go through life being like, it's not everyone's like Jafar from Aladdin. Do you know what I mean? Like, instead, I think that serves you so much better than if you were to come at it from that character perspective of, no, I really am, I'm a bad guy. Kate in Taming of the Shrew, she does not see herself as a shrew. So in the monologue, especially in that scene between them, there's a very famous production, the San Francisco production of Taming of the Shrew. I think it's like 1972. It's the Commedia dell'arte one with all of the, there's just, it's a very physical, if you've not seen it, it's on YouTube. It is amazing. It is probably the single best version of Taming of the Shrew I've ever seen. But whenever she is in that very specific scene where she falls in love with Petruchio and they're kind of spatting back and forth the whole time, she is far more interested in those vowels, and she's far more interested, there comes a point that shifts in that scene where she goes from hating him to being like, oh, this might be fun. And she changes that idea, but never once, she's mean for whatever that mean, in quotation or whatever that means. But she doesn't see herself as a villain. She sees herself as being protective of herself, right? Joan of Arc doesn't actually see herself as some great messenger from God. She says all the time, I'm a shepherd's daughter. If she thinks of herself as some great messenger from God, that undermines every single thing she does and says in that play. Kind of speak your language?
Yeah, I mean, I think he always believes everything that he says about it.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the big thing, and he legitimately believes that this is the best thing that could possibly happen.
For
No matter what.
everyone.
He's in the scene, he's talking to Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And trying to get her to go talk to her daughter
Yeah.
for him. And literally, like, right after this, they have a dialogue back and forth between them where she's like, yeah, but you killed my kids.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, but I'll bury them in your daughter's womb.
And
And
I did it for you.
yeah, I did this
For you.
because these kids are going to be way better
Yes.
than what those kids were.
Yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, but, and he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
but, for like, however long, and she's like, and she literally has a very similar line to, am I going to believe, like, am I going to allow myself to believe that you're telling me the truth? And he's like, I bet you are.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'll do it. And she leaves, and immediately, as soon as she leaves,
Yeah.
he goes, what an idiot.
Yes.
like immediately. But at the same time, he's getting what he wants because he knows that he can, in his mind, can save the kingdom.
Yes.
It's all about, it's Lex Luthor being like, I'm against Superman because Superman's gonna destroy the planet. Like, no, bad guys don't believe they're the
They're
bad
bad guys, yes. And I think, that was lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
I think playing to a certain extent, I think from an action perspective or a physical perspective, you can play into those stereotypes physically. You can play, your voice was very good for Richard right now, frankly. Do you know what I mean?
And I walk like him all the time.
Quit trying to take this part from me. But although it is interesting that my physical ailment would be that I'm a woman. I'm stealing that.
And literally nothing else.
Nothing, literally just that she's a woman. But there is something, the stereotypes exist for a reason, right? So it's interesting that an evil character, for lack of a better term, would have a specific vocal quality and would have a specific physical quality, and yet play all of the
Overcomes
lines,
that
yes,
to-
as
to
a
the audience,
hero,
to everyone.
yes. And the same, again, I think the same thing is true for Joan of Arc. I think the same thing is true for Viola. You could say this for any number of characters in any of literature or in plays, that adhering to those stereotypes from a vocal, physical perspective is going to pay off far more than kind of coming at it from a play script or analysis perspective that this person is going to play evil. Evil people don't know they're evil. Good people don't know they're good. I mean, the same thing for Joan Lapucelle. I think she just was following what she thought was God's word, and whether people judged it as good or bad really is about the person making that judgment. It's far less about how she views herself. Kind of speak your language. Mike Murdoch, ladies and gentlemen. He did his whole monologue. Lo, there is Matt Petruchio's wife. Would you please him come marry her? I'm going to think about that for 3 days. So before we kind of wrap this up, please take these. I printed 9 gajillion of these monologues. I think for my money, I love these. These are my 3 favorite plays. So of course, if we're going to do something, we're going to do stuff that I like. I say that to my students all the time because they're like, "Why'd you pick this?" Because I like it, and it's my class, and that's why. But I would take these monologues with you, and I would look at this character analysis, script scoring. This is, when I say quick and dirty, I mean that. It should not be laborious. We should stop spending our time kind of kvetching over how you get to character. It's unnecessary. And it's across the board. For every single, again, Shakespeare is, Charlotte's Web is, they're all the same. So the more that you can come from that perspective, it takes some of that mystery. It's going to demystify what this kind of work is. Thoughts, questions, feelings. Feelings is a medium one. Thoughts? Was that a thought you had?
No, it's feelings are high.
Ugh, actors. I feel this. It's like no one cares. No one pays money to see your feelings. Helpful? Yes, no, kind of?
So what are you looking for in an audition? Like, when you
Sure.
see it, do you know it, or is it something specific?
It depends. I like specificity. I like actors that make bold choices, even if they're the wrong choices. I'm very interested in making bold, loud, large, interesting choices. You know, I'm in theater for a reason. There's a reason I hate film. Film is a medium, sorry, Todd. Film is a medium about small moments. And it's often what has destroyed, I think, theater actors, because they often come from the perspective of realism. Realism doesn't exist. It's an idiot idea. Realism is nonsense. Because I can tell you that often actors will say, well, in real life, well, it's like, right, this isn't real life. It's a stupid way to approach it. Everything about theater tells you it's fake. We make sure we light you as beautifully as we can. We press your costume. We make sure that your costume somehow magically looks beautiful next to this other costume. We make sure not to put an ugly background behind you. You know what I mean? Like, it is an idealized version of life. And in theater, it is a larger than life version of life. You're looking to create big pictures. And so I am always looking for people who are unafraid to create big pictures. I don't like small actors. What I mean by small, I hate actors who like a gesture from that weird hinge gesture that people do where they keep like they're protecting their vital organs, right? Like I like air in the armpits. I want to see you make a bold, sharp gesture, right? I like that. I like, I really am mostly attracted to actors who are unafraid. And so I like an actor who will come in, like I would die for a girl to come in and do like a Richard III monologue for me. Like that would be, oh my God, that would like feed all my shit. You know, it's so close. It was just SHI, that's barely a curse word. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can say that on television. Anyway, yeah, I die for stuff like that. Or like a dude who would come in and do like a Juliet monologue or a nurse monologue. Like that's interesting to me. Because then I know that there's not, I don't like fearful actors, right? It always annoys me because I think, why did you get into this? You certainly couldn't have gotten into this to feel terrible about yourself every time you step on stage. So that kind of fear-based idea of like, I don't want to do anything wrong, I hate that. And also Gen Z is like very guilty of doing that. They're all very fearful of getting in trouble. And I have to remind my college students that trouble after the age of 18 is prison. Otherwise, trouble is like someone yelled at you one time, and like if you can't stand someone yelling, you should get out of theater anyway. But yeah, I like bold choices. I like actors who are not fearful. And I'll often take an actor that I think made all of the wrong choices in a monologue or an audition. I'll much rather take that actor if they made bold, specific choices, rather than an actor who maybe came in and did a very kind, reasonable monologue as Juliet. Like Romeo and Juliet, I hate Romeo and Juliet. It's like my least favorite play. The most interesting character is Friar Lawrence, and I think all the other characters are idiots. So like even someone coming in doing like a very respectable Juliet monologue, it's like, well, of all of the characters in Shakespeare, did you just think of the one play that you knew and chose that ingenue character and called it a day? So yeah, I like that more than anything. Because otherwise, what are we doing? Like, what is the point of all of this? If you want to be reasonable, don't get into theater. That's ridiculous. Helpful?
Yeah.
That was a very long answer to your question.
I knew who I was asking.
I am a professor after all. Anything else?
I'm curious, when you're going to see a professional production of
Yeah.
a Shakespeare play,
Sure.
and it's at a level where you know that like most of this kind of like ground level stuff that
Yeah.
you're covering today, like they're going to have that.
Maybe.
What do you hope to see and like what excites you in a professional production?
It should be like, I can't remember who said this. It might have been a professor of mine. It might be some famous quote. It's like honey from their mouths. This is the way that they speak. You don't question it once. It's as if that these people have always spoken this way. There's no singular question. I mean, it's far easier to see a terrible Shakespeare play than it is to see a good Shakespeare. Like, terrible Shakespeare plays are a dime a dozen. But a really good production, I think these people live and breathe those moments. And also, there's something about seeing a professional production of a Shakespeare play that you understand it instantly, because I think they understand it instantly. That's why I'm less of a fan of I'm always annoyed when people are like, oh, well, I just can't go see Shakespeare, I don't understand it. To a certain extent, that's an audience member going, I can't be bothered to do the work of like really listening and being present in this moment. Because when you see a very good production, I once saw a kabuki-style production of Medea in Japanese. I could not understand, I don't speak Japanese, I barely speak English. I could not understand a single word of what was said, but I understood the entire story. And this was prior to me being like obsessed with Medea. The Shakespeare, I think, is the same way. I think that if you see a production that is very well done with actors who are very clocked in and also actors who work very well together. I mean, I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about mine and Mike's relationship is that we're very trusting in that. Was that a fair statement? That there's a sincere amount of trust there. That I trust that whatever he is giving me, I will take in wholeheartedly, right? Like it's that improv notion of yes and. Like I will agree, I will do everything I can in my own characterization to back up whatever he is doing, and that in turn becomes remarkably reciprocal. I think that that is true in great professional productions, that also those actors trust each other. And I say that with a little trepidation because young actors will often, I always can't stand when people are like, we became a family. Like, first of all, no, you didn't. And second of all, that is an unnecessary aspect, right? Like Mike and I happen to be friends, but we became friends through our work together on stage. We didn't start out as like besties. We developed that relationship because of our professional relationship. The same is true for Nora and myself. We didn't like meet and we like became friends and then created a professional relationship with one another. We instead created that through the work. And so I have some trepidation in saying that because actors are often like, I need to fully trust the other actor. What I mean by trust is I trust in the work, not the person. I mean, I trust those people. Were they strangers? I don't really need to know anything about them. We don't need to form some like little intricate bond that'll be forever. We don't need to do any of that nonsense. If we're both trusting in the work and in the way in which we're approaching each other, everything else falls into place. No personal relationships even need to, I mean, it's cool when they do, right? Like we've been friends for literally 20 years. Mike and I have been friends. And so we don't need that at all though. I could argue that when we first started, we didn't know anything about one another and instead came to that trusting idea through the work, kind of. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think you know it when you see it. It's one of those things, oddly enough, it's just like pornography. You know it when you see it. That's literally what it is. But I think it's similar in that way that when you see actors who are willingly giving and taking, there is no ego in that, right? When we're working together, it's not like I'm trying to one-up Mike or I'm not going to let Mike's character beat my character, any of that kind of stuff. Nora and I, whenever, the very first play we ever did together was Medea, and she played Glauke, Glaus, she played Glauke, and we had formed kind of a relationship, but that was early on in our relationship. And the thing that I always enjoy about working with Nora is that there is a lack of ego there. You're similar, right? There was in the Love Song of J. Robert Oppenheimer, there was a lack of ego there, and instead of it being about like my character is the most, literally you were the character who was titled in the damn play. Instead, it was about creating the best story. And if that becomes, that is I always say to my students, I want the best play. I don't care how we get there. I don't care whose idea it is. I want the best play. And so whoever has to lay down their ego in order to get that play, that's where you're going to get it from. And I think that trust of actors with one another and actor to director, you know, you have to have, to a certain extent, a blind trust. I mean, I say all the time, you should think of it as Scientology. It is a blind belief. Just a blind, ignore all possible evidence to the contrary. It is a blind belief in this idea of us all agreeing to play pretend together. And I think if you're playing pretend hard enough and we're all believing enough, that's when I go, oh, that's who these people are. There's no question in my mind that we're seeing these people in real life. Kind of? Cool. Cool? Hopefully you learned something, 4 people I know on Facebook.
And on that note, you can send us a check for to join our Scientology cult. It is 68 Holly Avenue.
I know so much about Scientology, it's actually creepy.
I'll start buying all the property around.
It's just so weird.
This is the final bit of our Winter Shakespeare Festival Fest. I want to thank Leah for being a part of that. I want to thank Dr. Jeff Roof for being a part of that. The next bit will start with the West Virginia Shakespeare Festival proper. We have auditions for Love's Labor's Lost in May, directed by Richard Perloff, who will be joining us from California, presuming it still exists by the time that happens. And we're very excited to bring him in for this project, and it's going to be very fun. We will have more speakers and more workshops and that kind of thing in the summer for that as well, and of course in the fall, because of the West Virginia Humanities Council, we can do this year-round now, and that is a big deal for us. So I want to thank them once again. We do have some forms that everybody needs to fill out before we get out of here, so please take a moment to do that. Thank you everybody for watching, and once again, let's hear it for Leah Turley.
Hello, there's Map Patrica's wife. Would you please him? Come, marry her. I know the monologue. Thank you, Todd Gilpin.